Hey guys, we're going to have a look at the recently spoiled rules for Kroot in Killteam from January's White Dwarf. Um, spoiler alert for my spoiler, it's fucking nothing. They, yeah, Kroot have no army-wide abilities, no fieldcraft, none of that. Um, you just got the stat line that you'd expect. It's what they already have in the. It's really just their Tau Codex stat line, but without the advanced move and without any other fieldcraft stuff. Strength 3, toughness 3, wounds 1, attacks 1, leadership 6, save 6 plus. They got the Kroot Hound, which is movement 12, which is surprisingly fast. 2 attacks. And those attacks are at one thing that should be pointed out, even though these guys say they're strength 3, really they're strength 4 because they all have those Kroot rifles. Can't not have them. That gives them +1 strength. Whereas the Kroot Hound, strength 3, toughness 3, their jaws, their ripping fangs, are AP -1. That's worth noting. Also, they have an ability called Voracious Predator that adds +1 to hit rolls against models that have any flesh wounds. So they're good at finishing off models that you've already managed to wing somehow. Oh yeah, right. For the carnivores, no. Then we got the Kutax Rider, who is actually something of a monster, because he's got strength 6, toughness 3, 5, 4 wounds, and 2 attacks. Now, strength 6, that'll insta-gib a guardsman. Toughness 5 is actually that's hard to hit for a lot of basic weapons. 4 wounds, that's a lot of wounds. That's actually more wounds than a Tyranid warrior. 2 attacks is a bit weak, but I'll show you later how that's actually higher than you'd think. Leadership 6, and the 6 plus save. That's the problem. They all have 6-up saves. And if they had some sort of fieldcraft ability, that would be a lot more reasonable. But they don't. Maximum of 1 for the Krutax Rider, maximum of 4 for the Kroot Hounds, and the Kroot Carnivores are unlimited. For their guns, you've got the Kroot Rifle is a bolter, and then in melee, it gives them +1 strength. The Kroot Gun, on the other hand, amazing name, is 48 inches, rapid fire 1. So on a kill team board, you're always going to be within rapid fire range. Strength 7, AP -1, damage D3. This is a good gun. This is actually a pretty good gun. Yeah. So, also, points-wise, everything's quite cheap, because the Kroot Hound is... Kroot and Kroot Hounds are 6 points each. Krutax Rider's 27. And given how many wounds he has, 27 is actually kind of reasonable. I could have sworn... Is it really 4 wounds in the Tau Codex? That would surprise me. I have to check on that. I would have thought 3 wounds would be quite adequate. Doesn't matter. Yeah. It's not super interesting. Let's quick check out the specialists here. Carnivores actually have good specialist options. Leader, Combat, Scout, Sniper, Veteran, and Zealot. Combat and Zealot, that gives them extra attacks, that's good. Sniper, they have that rapid fire weapon, and then if you're doing a campaign at higher levels, you will gain that thing where they can where you can double your attacks with a stratagem. That lets you put out 4 shots, re-rolling your 1s. That's not the worst thing in the world. Hey, you got to take what you can get when you're playing Kroot. For the Kroot Hounds, they can be combat and scout. That's surprising. I would have thought they'd be like the Tau drones, and they wouldn't be able to be specialists. But And the Krutax Rider can be combat or a heavy. Now, heavy, you'd think the actual ability for the heavy specialist is useless because his gun isn't. Because his gun is just rapid fire. Which, if that gun was ranged like 24. Assault 2, or like 36. It'd be so much better for these purposes, but it's not. But he can still use that stratagem that gives him plus an additional shot. So that's not nothing. Yeah. Now, what's silly about the Kroot rifle is that now back in the day, what the Kroot just had strength 4 on their stat line. Way back when. This was like before 7th edition actually. Yeah, they had that, and then what a Kroot rifle did was it counted as an extra. It was the equivalent of a chainsword, really. Yeah, these days it would just give an extra attack like a chainsword, and then they had strength 4 on their own. It'd be kind of nice if it had extra attack as well, and they'd have 2 attacks each. I don't think that would break them. Maybe they'd make them cost an extra point. I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, it doesn't do that anymore. Like, I can almost kind of get why, because, like... So, fluff-wise, Kroot are... Because, remember, the difference between Strength 3 and Strength 4 is that it's between a human and a Space Marine. So, being Strength 4 on a, like, spindly, like, you know, body like a Kroot, which is actually pretty impressive. Now, fluff-wise, from what I understand, their thing is that Kroot muscles, like, their muscles flex really fast. So their strength comes from, like, the speed or whatever. Like like when they swing their arm, it creates like a whiplash effect that allows it to deliver more force. So Kroot can't bench press stuff, but they can chop really hard. And that's why they use those rifles with the blades on the end, because then they can get a really good swing with that. It's a physics thing. Trust me, that actually does make some amount of sense. So representing that by having them only be strength 3 but strength 4 with their gun is... I can see why they did that, because it is sort of representing the fluff, arguably, but whatever. Yeah. So I'm prattling. Let's move on to the thing that makes especially the Krootox rider more interesting. The stratagems. So, unfettered aggression. For 1 command point, 1 model for the duration of 1 fight phase, 1 of your models gets +1 attack. I don't actually know any other faction that has that. It'd be cooler. You can put that extra attack where they really need it. Hyper evolution. This is they kill the enemy, then they eat him and gain his strength. You've got to take an enemy out and not be within 1 inch of any other enemy models. So it's got to be the last dude. You can't consolidate. Add 1 to the model's move and strength characteristics till the end of the battle. It costs 2 command points, so it's expensive. When the hell are you going to have that extra command point to spend? And all it gives you is +1 strength. It doesn't give you +1 attack. It just gives you +1 strength. Yeah, I think it's a bit weak sauce. Now, Primal Savagery, this is wacky. Because you use it at the end of the fight phase, you have your Krootox rider attack again. Immediately fight again. Now, note that if you were to use Unfettered Aggression on your Krootox rider, and then Primal Savagery later on, you'd be able to make 3 more attacks. Yeah. So, it seems like that means that your Krootox rider is putting out 6 attacks in a turn, 8 if you made him a combat specialist. Now, that might sound like overkill, but the way this goes, you can play around with the consolidation moves. You kill a dude, you consolidate 3 inches over into another dude, and then you use Primal Savagery at the end of the round to Hulk out on that guy. In my head, I really am seeing that thing where Hulk in Avengers where Hulk grabs Tom Hiddleston and smacks him around like a ragdoll. Prestigious trophy. Yeah, a Kroot carnivore. When you take out leader, then you automatically pass a nerve test to the end of the battle. Rarely gonna come up. Doesn't let you not break. Remember, but yeah, agile hunter. You can jump over 4 inches instead of 2 inches. Now, this might seem corner case, but it actually makes the battlefields look a lot different. Next time you're on a ruins battlefield, look at 2 sets of, like, ruins that are high up and see how far apart they are. Because they might be further than 2 inches away, but I'll bet they're within 4 inches of each other. This makes the battlefield look a lot different. I think it might change the way you move. Also, funnily enough, you can use this on the Kroot rider. So this big gorilla can jump 4 inches and parkour around and get up to people and then attack them and then attack them again with the primal savagery. So that can get pretty funny. This does make the battlefield look a bit different. And then we got Tearing Jaws over here. It's just a thing for the Kroot rider. No, it's just a thing for Kroot hounds. Sorry. Once they get a wound in on the damage roll, spend 1 command point to roll 2d6 instead of 1d6 and use the highest result, as though it was a damage 2 weapon, even though it's not. So yeah, it's fucking nothing. I'm disappointed. I actually did have a Kroot mercenary army way back when, so I was kind of excited for this. I wasn't hoping for a ton. I didn't want, like, the entire, armory back. I didn't want them to have options for power axes and eviscerators and storm bolters and flamers and all that. I wasn't demanding that. It would have been cool, but I wasn't gonna demand it. But this seems really weak. Really, what kills me is they don't have fieldcraft and they don't have any kind of, like, early advanced move ability. All right, so okay, to work with what we have here, really we have a ranged force because they have good guns and they're cheap. 6 points a model. I did the math here. If you put out 1 Kroot rider and 4 Kroot hounds, that still leaves you with 8 carnivores. 8, 12, 13. That's 13 dudes on the field. Yeah, that's quite a few guys. I mean, it is quite a few guys, and one of them is huge. Yeah, he is a big fire magnet at least. That means less fire going at your carnivores. So yeah. It's a lot of shots going downrange. Yeah, so really what this force looks like, it looks like Mr. Gorilla Rider and his friends. It's so silly that the Kroot rider appears to be the star of the show and the rest of them are just kind of there to hang out. The carnivores, they shoot with their guns, and then you send the Kroot hounds in to be the melee, and then the carnivores also can do things in melee, but they're not your, like, mainstay for it. Apart from maybe your zealot specialist. Yeah, because really, I'm seeing, like, Kroot carnivore leader, and then make one of them a sniper, and one of them a zealot, and then make your Kroot rider a combat specialist. Or maybe a heavy, depending. I actually kind of lean towards combat. And yeah. Oh, right. Also, they made a thing where you can use these guys in... Sorry, dog is sleeping. You can use these guys in a Tau army as well. This is actually kind of a bigger deal for Tau. I mean, not that they needed another cheap way to get a gun on the field. They already have that in their stupid drones. But yeah, you could drop a couple of these into a Tau list. Yeah. One thing that's kind of frustrating is the reason why this is so basic is because they're holding themselves to the rule where they can't, like, give it rules unless it's on the sprue. Like how Chaos Space Marines, you can't have, like, 2 heavy weapons because there's only 1 heavy bolter on the sprue. And they can't take missile launchers either because there's no missile launcher on the cast Space Marine sprue. Nope, no missile launcher and no auto gun either. I mean no auto cannon because yeah. So and the Kroot carnivore sprue doesn't have weapon options. The only weapon options that exist are on the Kroot shaper. He could take a pulse carbine or a pulse rifle instead of his own rifle. He's not on here at all, which is probably because his stat line and abilities actually make him more like a cheap commander, like a 20-point commander, because he's got 3 wounds and 3 attacks, and then he like lets them reroll their ones to wound in melee within 3 inches of him is what he would have. And then he has something where if he gets a kill with his knife, then he auto passes leadership around him, I think. Yeah, something like that. So, I mean, I don't know why they don't have the rules for that commander here as well. I mean, why the hell not? It would have taken an extra 5 minutes, guys. Come on. But yeah, so that's disheartening. I mean, plus we have that other commander as well, so then Kroot would have 2 commanders. And it's just a shame that you wouldn't be able to field them both at once, but whatevs. But for real, the Kroot carnivore sprue has some extra bits on it. It has these like weird like set of balls that honestly kind of look like truck nuts that look like storage containers. It has that. It has this like pack of extra like ammo rounds shaped like a panpipe. It has extra armor plating. I mean, but by that logic, you could have like upgrades where some Kroot can get like a 5 or 4 up armor. And then some can get like extra rounds, and then some can just be, well, there's also cuts of meat and knives and yeah, that's right, some of them have combat knives. You could give them a combat knife that gives them +1 attack at strength 3. Yeah, you could. How about an extra attack at strength 3 if you have a combat knife? What's wrong with that? Yeah. Pistols. There's pistols on that sprue. They all have little like they have little like flintlocky looking pistol things, just like that one, just like the Kroot commander from Blackstone Fortress. He has a Kroot pistol. It's just a bolt pistol, but that's on the sprue. These guys could have gotten it too. So yeah, it's just frustrating because they could have done just a little bit more here, and we would have had something decent. Because it's really one of the worst things about it is that the complete lack of you're not going to get special weapons with these guys. You're just not. You're not going to get like plasma guns and all that nonsense. It was never going to happen, but I'm still very disappointed. I'm seriously considering like trying to come up with some kind of a fan patch that like adds in 1 or 2 little bits and bobs to make them actually competitive. Because as it is, I'm gonna give them a go. I'm gonna take this as an excuse to fix up my old Kroot, paint up some new ones, model up some really cool dudes, and I'm just gonna cross my fingers that like they release a full book later with better rules, or my local store will let me use like a fan patch. But yeah, I'm actually kind of ticked off, and I hope Games Workshop hears that people are disappointed. But yeah, so yeah. They made a Kroot Killteam, and it's fucking nothing. Later, guys.